Paul Thomas Anderson, a filmmaker that I'm sure you're familiar with, and even if you're not, you've definitely seen at least one of his films without realising it. He's a filmmaker that's been around for a good few decades now, and there's a lot to thank him for. He's made a widespread of films that vary the line of being very influential and groundbreaking and inspiring to many filmmakers and up-and-comers. He's given us amazing performances from some of well-known household names nowadays, and also he got Fiona Apple to stop doing cocaine that one time. Safe to say, Anderson as a filmmaker is like one of the most important guys working nowadays, and for right reason, honestly. If you look at his filmography and you've seen a lot of them, I know fine well you've given at least 2 or 3 of them a 10. Today, in light of Anderson releasing his 10th film, one battle after another, I've decided to go through his entire filmography and basically rank it in my personal opinion for what I feel is the worst and what I feel is the best. So join me today to basically do a retrospect of his entire career as a feature-length filmmaker and discuss his highs and, of course, some of his lows as well. Before actually getting into the list, it's important to mention that Anderson has also directed a widespread amount of short films and documentaries and music videos for bands like Haim and, of course, Tom York of Radiohead. I'm not including any of these in the list just because they're not feature length. And also, it's kind of hard to rank something when you have one thing that's like 3 hours long and another thing that's like a 40-minute short film that was meant to just be a behind-the-scenes exclusive for a Blu-ray. So, none of these are on the list. We're just talking about the films. Let's go. Look, there's got to be a worst for every list, and unfortunately Inherent Vice is that worst for me. I understand that I should really adore this film. It has everything going for it that I would typically enjoy, and I have tried to watch this a few times before I actually made it all the way through previously, but unfortunately for me, Inherent Vice is just a mess that comes across more boring than it does interesting. And I understand that this film has plenty of shooters out there that will gun for it day or night, and that's fine. I'm glad that you found something in this that I didn't, but for me it struggles to blend the lines of it trying to be funny, but also struggling to find any real deep emotion to connect with or be interested in. It has plenty of actors that I adore, and I think the performances are pretty good. Joaquin, Josh, Catherine Waterston, who is not cast nearly enough as she should be, but for me Inherent Vice is just not all that. That being said, it does look great, and the music's pretty great, and some of the comedy bits are actually kind of funny, but for me, it's just more annoying than it is interesting. I also understand this is based on a book, which I haven't read, and maybe one day I'll get around to it just to see if there's something I missed in connecting, but personally, this is not one I will be revisiting anytime soon. Back to where it all started. Hard 8 has a lot of the things that you would recognise for a Paul Thomas Anderson film, but the issue is, this is the beginning of his career. He's still trying to find his footing and understand what type of filmmaker he is, trying to find his voice, what he enjoys to put in, his stylistic choices, and sure, some of them do blend out here or there, especially given with the performances provided by John C. Reilly, Gwyneth Paltrow, Philip Baker Hall, and even Samuel L. Jackson has a tiny role in this, which leaves a mark and feels quite memorable. But then that's the issue, is nothing else really is. Hard 8 has the understandings of what Anderson was eventually going to become in the filmmaking sphere. You know, he's kind of a household name now, people are familiar with his work, and I'm happy that if people are going to discover who he is and realise that they enjoy this filmmaker, they'll at least go back all the way to find this, because I do think it is a little bit of an underrated gem. Although it's not groundbreaking or anything, it's still important to see where the filmmaker got his start. Oh man, this one's gonna piss so many people off. Phantom Thread is the only film from the 2018 Oscars that I had not previously seen until last year. The reasoning for that, didn't find it interesting when I first started it. And has that opinion changed? Kinda. I basically revisited it with a newfound respect for both Anderson and Daniel Day-Lewis after watching another P.T.A. film, which we'll get to. People have specifically mentioned how, with Anderson's filmography, there's before There Will Be Blood and there's after There Will Be Blood. And I think Phantom Thread is kind of a perfect definition of that after period. He was kind of focusing more on these serious, sort of slow burn type films. Not to say that there isn't stuff like that in some of his older work, but they are typically a lot more fast paced. You look at something like Hard 8, and that movie is like not even that long, it flies by. Even if it's not the most groundbreaking thing, it still is a pretty good time. Whereas Phantom Thread is very much this slow burn, which I have no complaints with. I just think that I don't connect with it as much as other people seem to. The relationship held between Reynolds and Alma is an interesting one, but it's not one that I feel is as deeply rooted as many viewers claim it to be. Honestly, the highlight for me with this film is the costume design, which I think is absolutely stunning, and of course it is when it's a film about a fucking fashion designer. I will revisit Phantom Thread one day, and I'm sure I will connect with it so much more, but as of right now, there's just so much better that Anderson can give to us than this. Licorice Pizza feels like a film that is never really made anymore. And I'm not just talking about the weird age gap stuff. It feels so reminiscent of 70s and 80s Hollywood, and that could be thanked by a combination of things within the film. Alana Haim and Cooper Hoffman are fantastic. They truly will dominate the spear one day. Well, maybe more so Cooper because he's actually acting, but they are people that I am big fans of. There's all these tiny little tidbit characters that we don't really get proper development for, but it feels reminiscent of both Anderson's old work and also a lot of the old films from the 70s that would have these quick little characters that would just not really add anything all that much of substance, but would also change the way that you look at the film in a way, with Bradley Cooper's character being like a huge example of that. I love the way it looks, I love the way that it sounds, but most importantly, I have to give big props to the trailer for Licorice Pizza, because I do truly think in the 2020s, it's one of the best edited trailers that has been released. People don't really talk about the art of making a trailer on YouTube at all, but that one is like the bare bones of how you should be doing it and not giving away too much and just trying to get the viewer entranced and wanting to go, I want to see what the hell that movie's about. Over time, I have kind of lost a bit of love for this film, and I understand there was the whole controversy at the time with people that just didn't really understand what the film was trying to deliver, but I'd say this is a perfect staple of what Anderson can really deliver in his late career. It's one of the reasons why every film in his filmography is so different from one another. The fact that he can take these stories about anything and find a way to elevate them to make these characters so personal and relatable to an extent, not the age gap stuff though, is quite fascinating. And as we go through the next few films, you'll understand why that is just so important. When thinking about all the things that P.T.A. has done and delivered, you have to think about the fact that he kind of made people fall in love with Adam Sandler all over again. When I was younger, a more pretentious film viewer, I thought Adam Sandler was cancer in any movie he was in. That being said, Punch Drunk Love is such an emotionally wrapped roller coaster, although it is a bit of a slow burn, and that's perfect. Both Sandler and Watson have this fantastic chemistry, with Sandler playing this very shy character that's kind of too afraid to get into his feelings properly with anyone, and Watson playing a character that feels a little bit lost in life. Not to mention Philip Seymour Hoffman's great performance as this sort of villain.
No, shut up! Shut the fuck up! You have no right to take me. Shut up! Will you shut up? Shut up! Shut up!
And that's one person I haven't mentioned this whole video. Now, Hoffman was an actor who was in quite a lot of films, a lot of really good ones, and Anderson and him were close collaborators. Their relationship as director and actor is one of the ones that I'm sure many actors wish they could have with people they're making films with. Honestly, I admire it so much, the way that he brings these performances out of Hoffman. He's so effortlessly funny in this movie, and that's the one thing that people don't seem to mention with this a lot, is Punch Drunk Love is really funny at times. Although it is a love story at the end of the day, it has these really hilarious beats that sneak up on you, and when they come, you kind of sit there in confusion wondering what happened for a minute before you just kind of burst out in laughter. There's nothing that can be said about Punch Drunk Love that hasn't been said a million times over. It's fantastic, and honestly, it's up there with one of the best. The Master was actually the first P.T.A. film that I ever saw. It left an impression on me clearly. It was one of the first times that P.T.A. had worked with many of these actors, including Joaquin Phoenix, Amy Adams, Jesse Plemons, Rami Malek, and it works insanely well as a sort of cult film, also depicting a lot of the emotions that come with PTSD, the aftermath of war and what it can do to individuals, as well as a very interesting character study on both Joaquin's character and Philip's character, who quite literally chew up every single bit of scenery that they're in. There is a million things that can be said about The Master, about how just insanely well written the script is, how it was snubbed quite a bit at the Oscars with the way that it lost in a lot of categories, and just in the way that it kind of defines what his late career is in the same way that Licorice Pizza does. You look at these two films and they couldn't be more different from one another, but at the same time you can still tell that stylistically they come from the same person, and I think that's one of the most important things about P.T.A. and his filmmaking techniques. Interestingly enough, with Boogie Nights, actor Mark Wahlberg a few years ago said that he regretted doing the film now that he's doing his whole fake Christian stuff and has a stupid prayer app. Hilariously enough, Julianne Moore actually turned around and said, well, actually, you owe your entire career to that movie, which she's not really wrong. But for me, it's absolutely insane that this was Anderson's second film, and what a left turn from Hard 8. This is often known as the one that put him on the map for a lot of people and solidified him as an important filmmaker to be paying attention to. The way that he balances all these comedy elements and makes you feel sympathy for people in the porn industry, which at the time, a lot of people really didn't have. And I mean, I say at the time, look at it now, people online mocking people that have OnlyFans and stuff. We're in the same lane that we were back then, it's just that the industry is a completely different landscape than it was. Boogie Nights really is just so ahead of its time, and it brings out some of the best performances that you'll ever see from a wide array of these actors. Mark Wahlberg has probably never done anything as good since. I mean, this part's pretty good, but I mean, look what he's doing nowadays in his career. So, I'm wearing a different outfit. I saw the film that more or less inspired the idea for this video in the first place, one battle after another, and I can report that it's maybe the best film of the year. Is it my favourite Paul Thomas Anderson? No, no way in hell. It's way too early to actually say something like that, but I don't feel like it's too early to put it as high up on this list as I am, because I do think that this is one of his best pieces of work, and maybe over time, as I think about it more and I see it again, I might decide that this actually is the best thing that he's ever made. But for now, number 3 feels like a really great place to put it. Who would have thought that pairing DiCaprio up with Anderson's directing style would just work so incredibly well as it does? You would have thought that these two had been collaborating for years, because honestly, this feels like something that we've been building towards for so long as a society, to see these two working together. DiCaprio is just fantastic in this, alongside everyone else. Chance Infinity, Tiana Taylor, Regina Hall, Benicio del Toro. But I do have to say big props to Sean Penn, because I think he might be the standout for me. He is so fucking evil in this, and every bit of his performance is just so perfectly orchestrated, from the little twitches in his face to the way that he walks to his body movement. Like, everything is just perfectly picked down to the specific. Of course, Johnny Greenwood, once again, frequent collaborator with P.T.A, comes back to do the score for this, and it's entrancing. The film never feels as long as it is, and I think a big reason for that is because of this score. It just constantly feels like things are moving along, and also to be complemented alongside these long shot scenes that go on for a good few minutes that perfectly emulate the experience of the anxiety that goes on throughout this. I don't want to linger too much on this movie, because I'm sure as Oscar season approaches, we'll be talking about it quite a lot, and I definitely feel like I might just do a flat out independent video talking about this film, because it really feels like one that is needed in a time like this in the world, and also just one that it's just perfectly made, really. I 100% recommend checking out One Battle After Another while it's in cinemas. I think that adds to the atmosphere of it. And I forgot to say that it looks absolutely stunning in the VistaVision. Couldn't see it in 70mm, unfortunately, but if you get that chance, I would absolutely take advantage of it. I'm swapping the fucking movies around mid-video. I can confidently tell you that when recording this, I had this at number 1, and then I started talking about the film that I now have at number 1, and I swapped them around because I realised that, yep, that's just how I felt. There Will Be Blood is arguably the best Paul Thomas Anderson film. And quite frankly, for me, number 1 and 2 are interchangeable in that sense that I could have either at number 1, and I will probably swap them around every other day. But to me, they are both just as important in his filmography as each other. There Will Be Blood follows an oil tycoon played by Daniel Day-Lewis called Daniel Plainview. Basically is just a man fueled by greed and disgust. He has no real empathy or love for anyone in his life, including his son, which he actually kind of just kidnapped, low-key. You spend a huge duration of the film kind of waiting for this turning point of him realizing his wrongs and becoming a better person, and eventually you can have to sit there and realize it's probably not going to happen. Not only did this movie remind me why P.T.A is such an important filmmaker working today, it also made me realize that Daniel Day-Lewis might be one of the best actors of all time. Top 10 at least. The way that he just merges into this character of Daniel Plainview and doesn't come out for the entire runtime. He just sinks into that role and becomes one of the most evil, greedy people that you'll ever see in film. It's mesmerizing in a way, and it's one of the reasons why this film is talked about so much. I mean, he won the Oscar for it, of course. Johnny Greenwood's score is scary at points. It just reminds you of the disturbingness of this time and kind of reflects on how many entrepreneurs and CEOs and stuff like that are kind of reminiscent of this. They're just as evil and creepy and fucked up. I don't really think there's anything I can say about There Will Be Blood that hasn't been said a million times over. I think the only thing I really have to say is if you haven't seen this, you should go out your way and do it like right now. Because if you're someone that's so deeply in love with the way that films are made and the techniques that come with it, then There Will Be Blood is nothing more than a reminder of why those techniques are so important and the reason why we love movies. But I don't have it at number 1. I rewatched Magnolia the other night and forgot just how insanely well crafted this movie is. Between the performances, between the editing, between the music, there's a lot to mention about this movie, and trust me, I will say as much as I can right now. I think Magnolia was the first film that really caught the attention of many critics at the time, who maybe viewed Anderson at the time as a bit of a gimmick filmmaker with some of the stuff he was making, and then they watched this and realized, okay, holy shit, this guy can actually make like really well substanced stuff. The whole theme of the story is to remind us that coincidences really don't happen and everything is connected in one way or another. Maybe not directly connected, but when you watch this and realize how everything comes together, it's kind of beautiful to see. Not to mention the wacky ending, which I refuse to spoil for anyone. You just gotta go and see this one. If you haven't seen Magnolia, actually, just click off this video and go fucking watch it. Come back in 3 hours and leave a comment about how I've just changed your life. Tom Cruise maybe gives the best performance I've ever seen him give in his entire career. I miss when he actually played these characters. As much as I love the Mission Impossible stuff and all the stunt work he's doing nowadays, I miss when he was doing stuff like this because he just is unrecognizable in the role. From the first moment you see him in the film, you're just in shock how he would agree to do something like this, especially compared to his religious views that he has nowadays. But it's not just Tom Cruise. There's also Philip Baker Hall, Philip Seymour Hoffman, Julianne Moore, William H. Macy, John C. Reilly, Milroa Waters, Jason Robards. Like, everyone in here is giving it 110%. You couldn't really expect any more. The film is just fantastically crafted in every aspect. It has amazing editing. The music composed by John Bryan and also the songs that were made by Amy Mann elevate every scene. Especially John Bryan's score, which kind of creeps in at points when you don't expect it and just kind of boosts everything up. But then also Amy Mann's songs, although they're kind of poppy, work perfectly in their place and suit exactly where they need to be suited. That Wise Up scene is so unexpected when it comes in, you can't help but just feel insanely overwhelmed witnessing it, which to me is why Magnolia is just a masterpiece. Well, that's my list, and it's hilarious because as of right now, I still haven't seen one battle after another. I'm sure wherever it ended up on a list is very divisive maybe, or maybe it's not. Maybe it's exactly where it needs to be, but I'm gonna go and see that right now. So thank you very much for watching this video. Let me know what you think of my list and how wrong I am, or how right I am, or I don't know, how I know nothing. I don't know what you want from me, but thank you very much for watching. Go and see one battle after another. It's probably really great. I mean, I've just said what I thought about it, so. And yeah, I'll see you in the next one.
Tame the cunt!